Hello, Numa282 here, and welcome to this. I don't even know. This video is gonna be a little different than what I usually do. I'm actually going to be doing a tier list video, mainly because I love watching tier list videos. I love making lists. I get hyper fixated on a specific subject, and I'll start breaking down and making lists. And I feel like this is a fun way to kind of talk through my feelings, and I get to talk about things I'm passionate about. As much as I do love the Let's Plays and everything else that I do, it can be a lot. I have to turn on a part of my brain that I don't always have on, and this kind of allows me to have a creative outlet plus put a video out with it. Today's specific tier list, though, is going to be centered around Harvest Moon and Story of Seasons. So the Harvest Moon and now Story of Seasons series is probably one of, if not my favorite video game series. It's definitely my favorite life slice of life video game series. I love Animal Crossing, but just the sheer quantity that Harvest Moon and Story of Seasons have kind of beat it out in that reason. There's just so many different ones to look at. On my other window over here, I have a little bit of information on each of the games. I have played a large amount of these games, and I own a large amount of these games. But the caveat to that is there's also a decent chunk that I haven't even seen stuff for or played. And then on top of that, there's some that I own that I haven't played yet. So let's start this off. First off, we have the entry to this series. We have Harvest Moon for the Super Nintendo. I'm gonna be real. I don't think I've played this one. I may have played a remake version of it. I think I actually put it on my Wii U, if I remember, and I think I played a little bit of it, but I don't know anything. I don't want to put it in the I don't know her, because it is, in my opinion, a game that starts a franchise off. No matter how terrible or unmemorable that game was, especially this far back, I think this deserves at least a middle ground rating. So I'm gonna put this in super okay. It started what this was. Now, Harvest Moon Game Boy. So this one, first Harvest Moon released on a handheld, follows the story of a young child tasked with reviving their deceased grandpa's farm. Now, this one I do remember playing on the Game Boy Color specifically. I thought it was fun. Of course, the mechanics were so early, but I'm gonna go ahead and, because I do remember enjoying this one, I'm gonna put this one at super okay. I think I'm gonna put it above. This one's probably gonna be at the bottom of the super okay list because I didn't actually play it really. Harvest Moon 64, farm simulation game from Natsume that incorporates social and economic elements along with the gardening. I loved Super Mario. I loved Harvest Moon 64. I don't remember a lot of it. I just remember loving it. And this is another one that I'm pretty sure I own on the Wii U. Or no, I think I played a little bit of it recently because it's on the Nintendo Switch Online titles. It's great. It's a great game. I'm putting this one in decent because it really was a fun game, and for what it was, I think it was really good. Now, start to fall off here. Harvest Moon 2 Game Boy Color. Second Harvest Moon game released on the Game Boy Color, Harvest Moon 2 GBC is a farming simulation in which the player assumes the role of either a boy or a girl who is left a farm and given 3 years to turn its fortunes around. I do remember playing it. Now that I'm hearing the description, all the bells are ringing. I loved being able to play as a girl. They usually have cooler outfit designs, better dialogue. There are just things that I prefer about it. Also, I'm a little fruity, so that adds to it. However, I hate timelines. I hate deadlines. I hate time limits. I hate it because I know I did not play this to the end of its time. You can't have such an open and diverse world like that, and then once you finish the main story, end it. That is my biggest complaint I have about Breath of the Wild. I do get the reasons, but I still hate it. Just let me wander around, because of that. I'm gonna put this one at super okay, below its original counterpart. Harvest Moon Back to Nature. Here is one I didn't play. I don't know her. I simply just don't know her. And I'm gonna be real. I think I own Harvest Moon for Girls. I'm pretty sure I own this. Never played it. So she's also going there. Save the Homeland. I bought this game kind of when I was at my peak of retro game collecting. I liked Save the Homeland. However, it does get dinged because there's not a marriage function. There is a romance-ish thing that you do for certain storylines, but it just wasn't enough for me. That was probably my biggest complaint. That being said, it was still a good game, and I liked the story of it. Rescuing your family's farm and the surrounding village from being turned into a resort. Remember, it's up to you to save the homeland. It's a very Disney Channel original movie, and I love that. Harvest Moon GBC3, I did not play it. We're gonna, I absolutely did not touch that one. A direct sequel to Harvest Moon 2, it is set on an island off the mainland. The player is tasked with reviving the farm and turning around its fortunes using 2 unique playable characters, a first for the series. I might have to check that one out. We'll see. Friends of Mineral Town, absolutely love it. Friends of Mineral Town offers a portable remake of Harvest Moon Back to Nature. Oh, okay, so I probably would have liked Back to Nature. So Friends of Mineral Town was fantastic. Gonna put it in God tier. It's gonna get knocked down. I can already feel it, but I did absolutely adore it. Now, more Friends of Mineral Town, it allows you to enjoy a similar gaming experience that was present in Friends of Mineral Town, but through the eyes of a female protagonist. And because of that, it goes above. It absolutely goes above Friends of Mineral Town. It's a game that let me be a girl. I just wanted it. And you couldn't really be queer in these older games, like Bully was probably the most extent of bi, representation we had back then. Any LGBT representation was rare in video games like this. And I was still kind of coming to terms with a lot of that in my head, especially as a young kid. The representation would have been so important. We have reached what is, I'm going to say, until June 27th, I think is when it's coming out. Until June, when a certain Story of Seasons game releases, this is my favorite game. Harvest Moon, A Wonderful Life. Absolute God tier. I love Harvest Moon, A Wonderful Life. It is the only, that I know of, it is the only Harvest Moon and Story of Season game that focuses on the family dynamic first and foremost, and the relationships with the other people in Forget-Me-Not Valley, which is a sick name for a little town. Love it to death. The funniest thing is the worst part about this game was the farming mechanic. It was very slow, and from what I've heard in the remake that is coming out, Story of Seasons, A Wonderful Life, it was very much fixed. So I'm very excited. They really narrowed it down a lot. There were only 3 marriage candidates. Of course, you were a boy in that time. They would not let you play. They wouldn't let you romance male characters. You had, at least in the English translation, Muffy, Nami, and Celia. So this is the only game that requires you to get married, I believe, and the only one where you have to get married by the end of year 1. If you do not romance anybody by the end of the first year, Celia proposes to you, basically saying life is hard enough on your own, let's do this together. It's weird because it feels very, especially if you don't have a relationship with her in the game, and then you either choose yes and you get married with her and you have a child, or you choose no, and the game ends. It ends there. You have to get married, and it's because this game has such a high focus on the family aspect, and I love it. It's honestly such a great game. The music is just, it's my ringtone, I think, right now, actually, for my generic ringtone is the Harvest Moon title. Or no, I think it's just the regular Forget-Me-Not background music. When I tell you, when I play the remake, I'm probably going to bawl my eyes out when I hear that title screen music. This is the Harvest Moon game to play if you loved Animal Crossing. And I say that because it genuinely is hands down the most relaxing Harvest Moon experience. I talk about how it focuses on your family. You do have a child, but then that child actually grows up. So as you play through the years, your child will actually age up and then eventually become an adult and get a job. The job and career that they go after is based off of the people you're friends with, you interact with, people they interact with, and it can be a different playthrough each time. How would you improve a game like this? You may ask yourself. And you know my answer. Let me be a girl. Let me marry dudes. Harvest Moon Another Wonderful Life basically took the same premise and just flipped it. They modified the game. And they just changed who you could marry. I believe the 3 marriage candidates were Rock, who lived at the hotel. I can't think of his name. There was a hippie that you could marry. Oh, and then the other one, of course, was, I think his name was Marlin, which was Celia's older brother. So they were essentially swap candidates. Muffy was very free-spirited, and then her hippie counterpart was kind of the same way, but less glitz and glam. So it was really good. Of course, what sucks is those characters weren't necessarily attractive. They had strange character models because they were not designed to be marriage candidates. They were designed as just NPCs. When they created Another Wonderful Life, they did have these 3 kind of perfect characters to be your romances. This is where I contradict my previous rules. Harvest Moon, A Wonderful Life Special Edition. I'm gonna slot it still under Another Wonderful Life, but above the original. So basically, they added some cutscenes. They added like a couple extra special characters, I think. But the biggest one, one of the biggest changes was that you could choose the gender of your child, which was kind of cool. And I did like that, because I always imagine if I did ever have kids, I'd want a daughter, because I think I'd be able to do that better. I feel like I have a lot better life experiences that would assist. Of course, as I grow older, I also understand that gender's becoming a more and more fluid thing, especially when it comes to predetermined roles. So I don't think that as much, but especially back then, I always loved the idea of having a daughter. And so this was kind of cool that it let me. Also, it was on the PS2, and we've already talked about, I love the PS2. It's great. So now, another one. Harvest Moon DS. Harvest Moon DS is amazing. I absolutely love Harvest Moon DS. 10 out of 10. I'm going to put it above. These are going to get bumped down. At least regular Friend of Mineral Town's getting bumped down to decent. I'm going to put 64 below it. It is high decent. Yeah, no. Harvest Moon DS was great. So it actually takes place in Forget-Me-Not Valley, which is awesome because I love the characters. I love the map. Even on a 2D style, the map was kind of cool. And it was really good. It had a cool mechanic so this one didn't force you into marriage like the other one did. And actually I never got married in Harvest Moon DS, which was always upsetting to me, because in order to do it, you had to collect a certain amount of harvest sprites. You got harvest sprites by doing challenges or certain tasks. It was like achievement hunting, basically, which was a really cool concept that kind of gave purpose. It's one of the things I loved about Stardew Valley was you had objectives, you had things to work towards, and I always thought that was great, and I really would love to go back and play through it. I don't think I will, only because there's a reason why, because I'll get to that here in a moment. But now we're back to the GameCube again for another console release, Harvest Moon Magical Melody. Harvest Moon Magical Melody is pretty great. I hated it as a kid because I hated the chibi art style. I still don't love the chibi art style, but I actually have a respect for it. Now as somebody who absolutely loved the direction they took for the Diamond and Pearl remakes for Pokemon, who loved Wind Waker growing up, like I actually understand it a lot more now. I also loved the aspect of it. There was a lot of like choices. You got to choose where your farm was. You got to choose, you got to befriend and interact with way more bachelors and bachelorettes. You could choose between being a boy and a girl, which I thought was really wild that it took them that long on the console to give you a branching option instead of just releasing another game Pokemon style. But it was really good. It was also, I believe, the first one where you could customize your house inside, which was huge for me. As an Animal Crossing fan, it infuriated me anytime a game gave me a house but wouldn't let me like move furniture around. This one fully lets you do that, and I thought that was fantastic. It is a through and through phenomenal game, and I do love it. It was also huge because there was actually basically an androgynous. It was a character who didn't really identify in any gender role, and they had that character who played your rival. I feel like their name was Jamie. It was something like that though, but basically this character was never really identified as male or female, because you could marry your rival as a male or a female. And I like that they took that approach instead of making two individual characters, because then you just have characters that you don't ever really get, like you won't get if you play in that other game or in that other style. If you play as a girl, you won't get to see this version of your rival. So I really liked that, and I thought that was kind of way ahead of its time, even if they didn't mean for it to be that way. I did enjoy that. Now, here's the reason that I wouldn't play through Harvest Moon DS. Harvest Moon DS Cute, which is an adorable name, by the way, was the girl version of Harvest Moon DS. They, of course, I believe they did a couple quality of life updates, but basically it was super cute. It was the whole premise of these games where you're helping save the harvest goddess who became trapped in another world. Basically, you had to get all of this harvest sprites to bring her back, and I thought that was really cool. And I really loved it. And that if I do play back through it, that's going to be the one I play back through, because I did buy that a few years ago. I saw it at a flea market and I like cried. I was so excited. Now, Harvest Moon Boy and Girl. This was an okay game. So Harvest Moon Boy and Girl is direct port of the Back to Nature games. So this is another version of, I think Friends of Mineral Town is what we established was the remake. So this is yet another remake of they have remade the hell out of this game. So this is a remake of Back to Nature. The only difference is that you have the option of playing as a boy or a girl. Now I won't even know if I wouldn't even consider this really a remake. I know they updated some things, but this was genuinely a PSP port. I'm gonna put it in super okay because I feel like I still enjoyed more Friends of Mineral Town more. Once again, it wasn't terrible. It was a good game through and through, and I like the ability of picking the gender, and I think that was big for me. But I'm putting it in super okay at the top, so it's not bad. Now is going to be where my attendance in the Harvest Moon lore was choppy. So first we have Puzzle Day Harvest Moon. I'm going to be real, I have never played any of the puzzle or mini game style Harvest Moons. I'm sure they're fun, but that's not why I didn't go to Harvest Moon because of mini games. I came to Harvest Moon for the actual simulation, for the actual like slice of life idea. So I don't know her. Sunshine Islands is one that I didn't play either, and I was really upset about it because I loved the idea of it. But because I was upset that I missed out on it, I did get Island of Happiness, and honestly, I liked Island of Happiness. It was such a unique concept, at least for me at the time and for Harvest Moon, I think, where you were on this island, this deserted island where people like, I think people either used to live there, I think they used to live there and they all moved off the island. Added a lot more of the DS's function, which I now don't love, but at the time I was obsessed with. But the biggest part about it was just you were trying to rebuild this island and bring people back to it to live there. And I thought it was really nice. Once again, and this kind of reigns true for a lot of these games, I never really played all the way through any of these. I think the furthest one I probably got through, at least by this point, was A Wonderful Life, but I did not, like, my child never aged past, I don't think I ever got to year 3, genuinely. Holy crap. A sleeper hit, a underrated, never talked about absolute gem. Harvest Moon Tree of Tranquility was amazing. So I'm gonna actually put Tree of Tranquility in the God tier. I genuinely loved Tree of Tranquility. It was our first more realistic look. It was the most realistic look we've had in one of these games since A Wonderful Life. And it was good. I mean, it was, once again, we were back to having, you got to choose your character. Still couldn't be queer. We won't get that till much later. But it was really cool. And it had a bigger emphasis on kind of the farm life and on like pets and animals, which was kind of cool. Biggest gripe about this one and Animal Parade, so I'll say this one now. Your farm was so far away from the town that just to get to town, I swear it felt like I was taking like a 30-minute walk. And I get that that is like realistic to what it would be like in these places, but like, I will never understand why games like this don't. Just let me fast travel. Just let me click on a part of the map and go there. I don't care if you like have time move while I do it. I don't mind. Just don't make me walk. Because that's so, and it's literally what made me stop playing both of these games. As an adult, this wasn't like with child's impatience. This was with child's impatience is probably what I have still, but yeah. So Grand Bazaar, one of the ones I did not play. Players are tasked with returning Zephyr's town's bazaar back to its former glory, as well as growing crops, raising animals. Oh my god! I thought Grand Bazaar was a mini game compilation. I may have to revisit Grand Bazaar. Now, Frantic Farming is an all-new action puzzle game set in the world of Harvest Moon. I love action puzzle because that honestly makes it sound like we're gonna be like shooting people and like fighting, which would I would play that. Give me Harvest Moon, but with fighting the other villagers, I'm in. Harvest Moon Animal Parade. This one is actually going to go in front of Magical Melody because it is that good. Yes. I believe they added even more animals that you could befriend and like kind of have as a pet. Once again, didn't get very far into it because of the walking, but just the mechanics alone have it solidified in the God tier section for me. I did love it. Also, I think it's time I bring more Friends of Mineral Town down to decent, and I'm gonna put Harvest Moon 2 in. I know. Okay, so now we have Hero of Leaf Valley. Hero of Leaf Valley is a remake of Save the Homeland. They redid it. It was almost like a reboot. They kind of improved upon a lot of the stuff from the PS2 game. For this one, this was for the PSP, and honestly, I liked it. I mean, and they added marriage. That is the biggest issue I had with Save the Homeland. I'm actually gonna put this one above 64. It was really good, and once again, I like the story concept of it. It had a similar story concept. It was just a good game, and I really enjoyed it. Okay, so now we're gonna get... I'm gonna give you a heads up. We have a couple more games before I start getting mean, and I'll explain why, but, you know, just giving you that heads up. Harvest Moon 3D Tale of Two Towns. I loved this game. The Tale of Two Towns gives the user the choice to live in one of two rivaling towns, Konohana or Bluebell, and tasks the player with bringing the towns together once again. This was such a unique concept because you chose which town you wanted to live in. One town focused more on the crop portion of agriculture, while the other town focused more on livestock and animals. And I adored that. I thought that was such a unique way, because I believe you could still do both, but you had more room. One town had a bigger field that yielded better crops, while the other town had a bigger field for ranching, and it did have a field for crops, but it wasn't as high quality and it was smaller. What's funny is I need to like actually take a look back at it, because I'm pretty sure you started out, I mean, you would start out with what that town kind of specialized in for the most part. So, because that's always the biggest thing with me and Harvest Moon and Story of Season games, is it takes me a minute to get animals, because usually they make you build the coop, and the animals tend to be way more expensive than just buying some seeds. So it's usually not for like at least an in-game season, if not like more, till I get animals. Tale of Two Towns was absolutely phenomenal. I adored it. You know what? I'm going to put it above Tree of Tranquility. I still think I prefer DSQ because of the town and the story. Because as much as I did love this story, I don't remember anything about the actual villagers and like the people that lived in the two towns. I just remembered their like specialties. After this, they released Harvest Moon 3D: A New Beginning. It was billed as the most customizable Harvest Moon game ever, and I do believe this was the last game that Natsume and Marvelous produced together. I loved it. It was fantastic. The ability to like create your character in the beginning, I believe, but it was just customizable. There was so much about it that you could do that you've never been able to do in a game like this before, and I absolutely adored it. And because of that, this one is going to demote Tree of Tranquility to decent. I don't feel as bad moving Tree of Tranquility down, because we do still have Animal Parade, which is still absolutely bonkers amazing. Let's get mean. So as I stated, Harvest Moon: A New Beginning was the final game, from my knowledge at least, that Natsume did with both Exceed and Marvelous. And then they took the name and they did the worst. I hate the Lost Valley. Utterly despise it. If I remember correctly, because mind you, I did buy this and I played through it, and I hated it enough to sell it to GameStop where I worked at the time. Not because I needed money, I just hated it. First of all, it was blocky, it was ugly. They made it look like a bad Minecraft clone. If I remember correctly, there either wasn't a town or you could like only go to the town on certain moments. There was no marriage from what I remember. Like, I actually genuinely don't believe there was any kind of romance option. There was barely like a friendship option. You just had this like valley farm thing that you could like, they were really trying to go with that Minecraft style where it was like breaking the dirt, building up, like you could basically terraform, but in like the laziest way. It was bad. It was a genuinely bad game that I would not touch with a 10-foot pole now. Seeds of Memories, I never played. It was on PC, Wii U, and what's it called? And think the iPhone. I think this was the first Harvest Moon game to come out on PC and like non-Nintendo platforms. I never played it. Genuinely never played it. From what I've seen, people didn't actually, like, they didn't hate it. It very much was, it looked a lot more like, let's say, Stardew Valley, where it was that kind of top-down from what I've seen. I'm sure it was okay. Well, no, I'm not sure it was okay because I've seen what they did with the series at this point, so. Which brings me to Skytree Village. Skytree Village was... No, I hated it. I was gonna try to say something nice. I genuinely hated it. So Skytree Village, it sees players trying to start a family, which you'd think that would have sucked me in, but I think it was just a combination of the way the game looked and like what they were doing with it felt so boring, and I just didn't like it. Now, if you ask me, Brandon, is there anything that you hate more than Skytree than the Lost Valley? Absolutely. And that, my friends, is Harvest Moon Light of Hope. I did not enjoy it. It was ugly. It was built, you could tell they built this with mobile in mind first and foremost. It was ugly. It was two-dimensional. It was gross. I hated it. They took everything that was great about Harvest Moon and they ripped it away from it. Mad Dash, never played. I believe that's another one of, yeah, that was just another mini game one, I believe. One World could have been okay. As of right now, the last game that Natsuma's put out, we are getting one later this year that looks okay, and I may check it out. But Harvest Moon One World was not great. I didn't like the mechanic they added. So one of the mechanics in One World, if I'm thinking of the right game, which I'm pretty sure I am, was that you could move your farm to like different locations using this like expando gadget something that like a scientist in the game gives you. And I thought that was dumb. I genuinely thought that was like just a dumb mechanic. Why would I move my farm? Because I believe certain crops could only grow in certain places, and it's just like, that's stupid. And from what I've heard about the new game coming out, the Winds of Anthos, they're expanding on that, which that makes me not want to get it. But the screenshots that have come out do make the game look pretty good. It looks like they're finally getting back to art style where it doesn't look like it was built like overnight. This is just a clear statement. I hate what Harvest Moon did to the series, but for everything they did wrong, Story of Seasons did right. Story of Seasons was and is the true remnant of Harvest Moon. The game follows along the same lines as the rest of the series, in which the player takes on the role of a farmer. Player can choose to play as a boy or a girl and choose between two difficulties at the beginning of the game, which that was kind of cool that you could have a difficulty. Like you could have it be like super easy. It went in a much better direction than Harvest Moon went in. And this was the original team, which I thought was really great. It made me sad because like I was like, you know, you guys are doing such great things. That it made me sad that, like, you know, you guys lost Harvest Moon. But we would soon find out we really didn't. So Story of Seasons, I'm going to put it as decent. I still think I prefer Harvest Moon DS to Story of Seasons. Once again, Forget Me Not Valley really is just stuck with me. But there was a glimmer of hope in the Story of Seasons franchise. They released Story of Seasons Trio of Towns. So Story of Seasons Trio of Towns was just a great game. Let's see, let's take a look. So this was supposed to kind of build on Tale of Two Towns, because it was that same kind of concept where basically you had multiple crops. Or not multiple crops. I don't know where my brain is at. It's late. You had multiple towns that you could visit, which was something, once again, unique. You know, you had these 3 different towns. I don't know a lot about the story. I played a little bit of it, and I don't remember too much. I do remember enjoying it, because it kind of just built upon a lot of stuff that Story of Seasons did. But it was really good. It was honestly really good. And I really liked it. Once again, the art style was just improving over time. They were trying to move in a better direction. Now, the reason why this glimmer of hope sparked into what it is today is because this was a sequel to a Harvest Moon game. This was essentially the follow-up to Tale of Two Towns. You can even tell it. You can even tell in the art style and basically how it was set up. This is when it was realized that Natsume got the name and the name alone. They do not retain the rights to any of the stories or the previous like characters or anything, which is why I, along with so many other fans, were ecstatic when Story of Seasons Friends of Mineral Town came out. Story of Seasons Friends of Mineral Town is, you probably guessed it, a complete from the ground up remake of Friends of Mineral Town, which was in itself a remake of the original Harvest Moon. Or no, Harvest Moon Game Boy, maybe. I don't remember. But in itself, it was a remake. Friends of Mineral Town, I'm playing that right now to try to soothe my, like, farming sim need. I'm playing through Friends of Mineral Town right now, married Gray the Blacksmith, because, oh wait, what's that? I married Gray the Blacksmith. I must have played as a girl. No, I didn't, because they added same-sex marriage. This was a huge landmark for LGBT representation in a game like this, especially because Natsume had repeatedly made comments that they would not bring same-sex marriage into their games because they didn't feel that there was a place for it there. Story of Seasons was just waiting on the okay from their publisher, basically, at this point. Apparently they were always fond of the idea of it. This is something they've been planning and they wanted to implement it in earlier games. So it's amazing. And I'm just thoroughly enjoying it. I really am loving it. And this is God tier. Honestly, this is like huge God tier for me. I lost my mouse. This is high up God tier. I'm putting this below A Wonderful Life. Like, seriously. You know what? I'm rethinking Tale of Two Towns. As much as I did love it, I feel like I remember enjoying the new beginning more. So now, weirdly hot take I have that I did not expect to be a hot take, but online says otherwise. I loved Pioneers of Olive Town. Pioneers of Olive Town might be my favorite, my favorite original Story of Seasons game. It's still gonna get put below. I'm gonna put it below Friends of Mineral Town only because the bugs the game have do bother me. So Pioneers of Olive Town is great. You start up in this town where the mayor kind of asks you, with your help, of trying to bring the town back to its former glory. Basically, this used to be a great tourist town, and then it all died out over time. I'm sure there's an in-game reason, I don't remember. But basically, your goal is to bring up the economy and slowly rebuild the town to make it another tourist attraction. It is really good. It's got a little bit of a slow startup, but I always tell people, and I don't know if I'm wrong for thinking this, but Pioneers of Olive Town really felt like a 3D Stardew Valley for me. Because there was so much you could do on your actual farm in terms of like choosing where you do your field, chopping down trees, placing your makers and stuff like that all over. You could put pathways. And they added something that I think every farming sim game should have. They let you build sprinklers, which is, I want by like year 3 at the most in a farming game, I want to have my farm semi-autonomous. I don't want to have to go through and water every single individual crop, because then you're limited to only being able to plant as many crops as your stamina would allow you to water, and that's just not how that would work. Also, they had my glorious husband, who I did get far enough to get married in that game, Ralph. He's a park ranger, and he is a hunk, and I love him. And we are married. But yeah, so I'm going to put Pirates of Olive Town. It's honestly tied with Friends of Mineral Town, if I'm being honest. I think I would say that they're tied. I'm going to put it below it because if I had to choose, I still think, and I think it's because I played both of them the last week to decide which one I wanted to get back into, and I chose Friends of Mineral Town. Because it's just more user-friendly, in my opinion. Now that we have done all of the main Story of Season games and all of the Harvest Moon games, this video is getting long, but I don't care, we're doing this. we now have the Rune Factory series. Rune Factory, A Fantasy Harvest Moon, was a spin-off of the Harvest Moon series, the original Harvest Moon series with everybody involved. Basically, it combined RPG combat elements and farming and a dating simulation to a robust and fun game. I love the original Rune Factory. Also, the original Rune Factory had a great opening anime cutscene on the DS, which was wild. It was so good. Like, it was, I don't even remember the song, but I remember, like, I used to just sit there and I would just let the title screen play. I'm gonna say decent, only because I feel like I'm putting too many things into God tier. I am gonna move Island of Happiness down because as I'm sitting here thinking about it, it wasn't bad. Same with Save the Homeland. It wasn't bad, and I like the concept, but the concept was improved upon later, which makes me less likely to go back. Like, Save the Homeland, I feel I'd rather just play Hero of Leaf Valley because it took everything about Save the Homeland and made it better. And Island of Happiness had some great concepts, but I feel like some of the concepts, for instance, like reviving a dead town or island, was perfected upon in Pioneers of Olive Town, in my opinion. Rune Factory 2 I never played, but apparently a lot of people really like it. But I didn't play it. Unfortunately, did not play it. Frontiers I played. I didn't care for Frontier. It was decent. Like, it wasn't that I didn't care for it, so I'm not even gonna say decent. I'm gonna say super okay, but I'm gonna put it kind of along the lower end of super okay. It was just that. It was okay. Rune Factory 3, didn't play it. Very unfortunate, because I've heard Rune Factory 3 has a lot of supporters. Tides of Destiny, I actually really enjoyed. It's definitely a decent game. I'm going to say it's probably better than Hero of Leaf. I still think I prefer the original Friends of Mineral Town to it, but I mean, it's a different game. It is a different monster. A lot, you know, you could argue that I probably shouldn't be reviewing these with them because they are completely different games, but it's my list, so whatever. But yeah, Rune Factory, something I loved about Rune Factory was the kind of high fantasy setting. It was something I really enjoyed, something that I like about, like, I think Sun Harvest is a game I kind of started playing. Only thing with Sun Harvest is there's almost too much. But yeah, I did enjoy that game. But yeah, Rune Factory Tides of Ocean, I put Rune Factory 3 on the wrong place. Yeah, because I never played it. But yeah, no, Tides of Ocean was great. Like I said, I think I'm gonna put it here in decent between Hero of Leaf Valley and Friends of Mineral Town. Because those Friends of Mineral Town just has some other, it's probably more nostalgia than anything. Rune Factory 4 was good. I liked Rune Factory 4. Like, genuinely, I didn't it was a fun enough game. I still think I prefer Frontier, only because by this point handheld games were getting to be a little annoying for me. I was getting tired of playing on such a small screen, even with the XLs and all that jazz, and it just wasn't really doing it for me anymore. But that does bring me to Rune Factory 5, which I am very, very conflicted about. I'm gonna put it at the top of super okay. It is a good game. The fighting mechanics are decent. They're not overly bearing to where it's like feels impossible. Sometimes Rune Factory, the first one, felt so difficult to do because I was dying constantly. The farming mechanics are good. They did improve a lot of things in Rune Factory 5, and I love the village. There's this really sexy wolfman you can marry that I plan to marry when I finally sit down and actually play into this game, because I do own this on the Switch and I played a little bit of it, but I have one gripe. You do not have a house. You live in what is essentially a loft, a walk-up loft on top of an office building that is like the core that you work for. You work for this like company or this defense corps that is also agriculture. So you're also farming. So there's a field out back behind this building, this company building. And when I say you live up in a walk-up loft, there's not a door. You just walk up the stairs. And from what I've seen online, you don't get a house unless they added it later or it's just something farther in the game that most people hadn't seen by that point. You do not get a house. You just live in there. So even when you get married, you and your spouse live in that loft, that doorless loft. And genuinely, I hate that. One of the best parts about Harvest Moon and Story of Seasons is that aspect of your homestead. You have a home that you've built, that you've grown, that you've added to, and it's just wild. And it's even more wild to me because, like, I don't, like, you marry somebody who already lives in town. If you don't have a house, why can't you just move in with them? Like, yeah, oh, you won't have the field right behind you, but whatever. Like, it's your job. You'll just go to work in the morning every day. Like, I think that was such a, I would have been a lot more okay with that if that was the case. But at the end of the day, this is a slice of life sim. You should have your own homestead, especially a farming slice of life sim. Now, here's one. I never played. Let me read this name because I can't read it off of here. So I never played the game Return to Papa LaCroix, A Story of Seasons fairy tale. I do not know. So it's a spin-off crossover with Papa LaCroix, telling a story not yet covered in that franchise while mixing RPG elements into the main formula. I don't know what Papa LaCroix is. Papa LaCroix, whatever. I don't know what that game is. I really don't. It does look like this was kind of their answer to Rune Factory, though I'm not sure if Rune Factory is still not Zoom at this point. That's a valid question that I should like. Yeah, no, not Zoom. I think not Zoom is still doing this. No. Okay. So Marvelous is was one of the publishers for Rune Factory 5. Okay. I feel a little bit better now about my Rune Factory 5. But yeah, so Papa LaCroix though was kind of the Story of Seasons equivalent of Rune Factory in my opinion, at least. But it focused more on the fairy tale aspect. So it was high fantasy. I wouldn't even say high fantasy. I would just say fantasy. Because I feel like Rune Factory had a lot more intricacies. You know, there were races, there were a lot more things. But of course, I could also be talking on my ass. I never played this game. I don't know her. I simply don't know her. Now, the next two are some more I don't know hers. And so, like, I'd said there were going to be a decent little chunk of games I didn't play. The Doraemon spinoff Story of Seasons, it was, Doraemon and so it was Doraemon Story of Seasons, which was a spin-off crossover with Doraemon. Gameplay follows the mainline Story of Seasons games, but features characters and special items from the Doraemon series. It's apparently really good, but it is apparently grindy, which is what kind of stopped me from getting into it. Also, you can't get married. If you're playing these games for the romance options, there is no romance options, so that kind of already dinged me pretty hard. However, I am considering playing the sequel, Doraemon Story of Seasons Friends of the Great Kingdom, another spin-off crossover with the same kind of things. Now, this one apparently they kind of toned down they toned down a lot of the grindiness to it, and they made it a little bit more accessible to everybody. But apparently the biggest attribute from these two games was the ability to kind of move things around on your farm. You could customize. It was a very customizable experience in terms of the game itself. However, in this one, once again, you're still playing a child, so you are not getting married. But this one did apparently have roommates that lived with you, from what I understand, or at least from what I've heard, which does kind of add an interesting relationship mechanic in that aspect. So I definitely would be interested in checking it out, and I might. It will be a while though, because come June, I'm not touching anything else. It's a Wonderful Life. Now we are going to two spin-offs that were very, I wouldn't say very, one of them is very different, and I have beef with one of them. Also, I know I said because it was the first one that I have to put it in super okay. I'm going to move OG Harvest Moon down to meh. Same with Game Boy, because as great as they were at the time, they've definitely aged, and it's not something it's not something I see myself going back and trying or playing. Anyways, back to the current ones. Hometown Story. Hometown Story was a weird one. So it was a spin-off game of Harvest Moon, but it was based more on store management than farming. Now, this sounds like a great concept, a concept that I would love to play. A game where you are, instead of a farmer, you know, your whole thing is that you own a shop. You're selling and reselling items. Maybe it's a pawn shop, maybe it's any kind of shop, right? And that's kind of what it was when you start it. That's the gist you get of it, is that you are the shopkeeper. You are choosing how much these items are for sale, but that's it. They could have done so much more with this. This could have been more like a My Time at Portia style of game, where you have this career, you have this shop that you run, but you also still are an independent individual. This one didn't have it. I'm putting it in meh because I don't hate it. I actually would. I still go back and play it every now and then because the general like retail mechanic is kind of interesting, but there was just so much potential there that it genuinely disappoints me that it's not, because there was no relationship mechanics there. I don't even remember the town if there was one. It was just a very meh game through and through. So it's going at the bottom of the meh series because of how disappointed in it almost is hated by me. But I do still go back and I play it from time to time. So it's something, right? Here is a game that polarizes me. Also, we're moving 64 down to super okay. Once again, more I think about it, the more a lot of these games probably don't need to be in the tiers that they're in. And I think I'm going to go through and kind of readjust these. But Innocent Life, a futuristic Harvest Moon. This was one that I wish spun off into its own series altogether, like Rune Factory did. It's for the PSP and then later ported to the PS2. I own both. I have not played the PS2 version yet. I actually plan to do that soon. Basically, you are this like android type thing who lives in these like castle ruins that you have a farm on the top floor of. It's such a pretty and beautiful game. There is a gorgeous futuristic town that's somehow both rural and cyber. Like, it is just so cool. And the farming mechanics were really cool. They had a lot of automation options because it is a futuristic game. You had a car that you could do, that you could like, or a little cart that you could run in. They had a cool grocery store when you went in. I remember I loved it because as you walked in, the shopping cart would like automatically detach and like follow you through, and it would follow you throughout the store, and that's how you would like shop. It was such a good game. The biggest downfall to it, the reason why this is going to go indecent for me and not God tier, no romance options. There's even moments that feel like they were going to implement romance in the game. From what I remember, once again, I haven't played a lot of these games since I was a kid. I could be remembering this wrong, but I feel like I remember looking up and seeing there were no romance options. And it's really upsetting for me because there's just... I understand that he's an android, so he's not like fully human or human at all, but like... And? Not to sound like a monster fucker or a robot fucker, but like... And? If you cute, you cute. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So this one... genuinely, because of the story, the atmosphere, and the art style, I'm putting this one at the top of decent. I like this better than Rune Factory. The only thing Rune Factory has over this is the marriage cycle and the RPG elements are great, but Rune Factory is held back by one thing. It's graphics. It was a DS game, an early DS game at that. Innocent Life was just a general better, like, all-around game. Now, this is our tier list. I'm actually going to keep everything where it's at. I think everything's pretty much where I want it to be at this point. Yeah, I really love this game series. Even like, especially the older ones, I have a lot of nostalgia for, but a lot of the newer ones are coming into their own. And like I said, I'm going to give Rune Factory 5 another chance. I know I kind of treated it unfairly because of that one thing, but that's just such a big thing for me in these games. So not having a homestead does really feel like it hinders more than anything. But yeah, this was a long video. I know it was a lot. Not all of these are ever going to be this long, but I have ideas for some other tier lists that I want to do. More video game ones, like, you know, favorite Sonic games or stuff like that. I also have some non-video game ones. I have one that I want to do where I focus, because I'm a huge horror movie fan. I want to focus on some horror movie stuff. I want to try to kind of diversify some of the stuff I talk about on this channel, because I have a lot of interests. And honestly, I'm at a stage, especially in YouTube, there's not a lot of y'all watching me. I appreciate those who do, but you know, this is probably the best time for me to experiment and kind of find out what I like to do the most. And these tier lists are just kind of a way for me to branch out with that. I have some upcoming that I want to do based around the Scream movie series as my favorite movie series of all time. And then same with Final Destination. I have one where I want to rank the deaths. It's gonna get morbid. These are gonna be some morbid lists every now and then, and there'll be warnings, but you guys watch me play Doki Doki, so you're fine. But at the end of the day, this is our tier list. You know, get in the comments if you have different opinions, if you think I should have placed something higher or lower, if I forgot anything, let me know. If you hated this list and you hated everything about it, okay, that's great. Good for you. Like, it's not your video. But thanks again though for watching, everybody, and I will see y'all in the next video. Bye.